Morden is two different characters. The first character is the one I was given when I came on to Mass Effect 2. And I was told he's the scientist who redid the genophage. And my initial reaction was unrecordable, but translated roughly as that jerk. Because Rex was my bro. So I had a choice. I had in manager speak, I had a problatunity, where I could either write Morden as just a guy who did that and went, yup, sterilized him, and maybe the really renegade players would like that. But everyone else would just go, I'm never using him. He's atrocious. He's a war criminal. How could you do that? Or I could challenge myself more and try to write someone who saw himself as good. Someone who saw himself as the guy who made the hard choice. Who didn't take the easy way out, doesn't cartoonishly justify anything he did, but gets up every day, looks in the mirror, and says, it was the right thing to do, even if I am sorry I had to do it. And that's what I tried to bring to him. And then the other part of him is the Gilbert and Sullivan.
I remember the day we were like, so how's Morden really going to go out? He's going to be singing.
It's going to be singing, yeah. So obviously the ending had to capture both of those parts of him. So for the room, the interesting thing for us is that what we really, John is possibly giving me too much credit, I didn't write the last scene with Morden. We wrote it together, I did some of the words. But really, when we say the last scene with Morden, it's really about 3 scenes. Because the first scene is, you told Morden and Rex or Reeve, if you couldn't save Rex on Vermeer, you monster, as soon as you possibly could. So show of hands, who told Morden and Rex or Reeve in the truck? There you go. Good people. That's what I'm talking about.
If you had Reeve, who told Reeve?
Yeah, really. There's going
to be a sea of blood and we're going to roll over.
Well, maybe that genophage is not a bad idea. So that's the first scene. And that is a wonderful... we tried to write that. I tried to write that as just a good send-off for a good character. He was doing what he wanted to do, and you were his friend who was helping him do that, and he did go out singing. And I am incredibly impressed by our cine designers and cinematic animators. We hate doing hard interrupt cuts, and we specifically said, I am the very model of boom. And yeah, we asked for that. That was
even as part of the team, when I first played Mass Effect 3 and got to that point, I dropped my... No! I got really upset.
But then there's another scene. What if you didn't tell him? And that scene is almost completely different because the emotional context is different. Maybe you're just revealing it to him there. Maybe you are, maybe you don't reveal it. How many of you tried to lie about it to him? How many of you told him to go away? Told him he wasn't going up?
Yeah, that was a...
And that was hard to write.
And it was we didn't immediately have a choice in there. We knew there was going to be a choice, but the form it would take, we weren't sure. And I remember thinking, all right, well, you could sabotage the cure. All right, that sounds good. There'll be a way for Shepard to sabotage the cure. It was actually Matt Walters, our lead, one day, who said, well, what if, in order to sabotage the cure, you have to kill Morden? And I came to Patrick. I'm like, well, Patrick, what do you think?
I think with any other follower, I would have said, you know, holy God, no, why? But in a way, we've actually laid the groundwork with Morden. In Mass Effect 2, Morden is possibly one of the only characters who will stand up to you, and not in a I am big enough to fight you way, but in an I believe in what I'm doing enough to stand up to Commander Shepard. So, you know, he's one of the only followers that I can really see getting into that kind of standoff with. And Morden, you know, Morden never draws a gun. He doesn't think he's going to take you. But he believes in what he's doing enough to say, if you have to pull the trigger, do it, but I'm not stopping. And wow, that was hard to write. So who pulled the trigger? There you go. Okay, everyone, look around you. Look at the hands that are on. Just keep your eyes on those people. Don't turn your back on them. Mostly, this was a scene that I could never have written on my own. I was honored to be able to work with John to help with it. Because it really is the work of so many different people coming into that. John and I also kind of worked together on the person who makes you feel even guiltier if you sabotage the Genophage later, Garrus, who, I don't know, who talked to Garrus after sabotaging the Genophage cure? You go up and you talk to the front of the cockpit, and he's like, yeah, I would have been tempted to do something.
But boy, you'd be cold-blooded to do that.
Yeah, ice running in your veins, and Shepard just says, I guess we'll never know. Yeah, that was dumb, Brown.
So Garrus, Garrus was a great character to write. Matt Walters, I believe Matt had written him in part 1, set up a great character there. Patrick then ran with him in 2. Patrick set up a lot of the seeds for then what I was able to do in 3, especially with the Fem-Shep romance. For me, it was then taking Garrus to the logical conclusion, which I think I remember pitching that my take was going to be Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. This was going to be two guys who really come to be, you know, best friends, right? Potentially lovers.
John is also being, I think, a little modest. Garrus, Rex, and Javik. So if you ever need a bro to be written, you want to go to Dumbro.
Well, it was like I said, back in Mass Effect 1, I was a fan like everyone out there sitting here today. So Garrus was a terrific character to play. So when I got the opportunity to write him, I wrote the way I thought fans probably wanted it to end, which was on this amazing note of friendship, I suppose. So that scene up there in the rafters, necessity being the mother of invention. So I knew I had to write a scene with Garrus, and I'm like, it's going to be at the Citadel, but man, what is it going to be? What is it going to be? So I'm in the game, walking around, and I'm looking up there going, I wonder what's up in the rafters. And then, wait a minute, Garrus might know. Hey, and the whole idea of a bucket list came together, which turned into a shooting contest and cinematics, and Art was looking at me like, are you crazy? And I said, you know, fans are going to love it, you'll see. But I'm curious who let Garrus win that shooting contest? So who didn't let Garrus?
Spirit of honesty.
The other great aspect to Garrus, of course, was, as I understand it, there was a lot of fan feedback in Mass Effect 1 wanting to be able to romance Garrus in 2, which Patrick then did in 2, I think, rather well. And all I had to do, I think, was just take that all the way home and give you the big sweeping, you know, Hollywood Gone with a Kiss, we used to call it up there in the rafters, to finally bring the romance where it should be for the final game. So I got to credit, though, Patrick for starting that whole...
I just did a hand bump.
We got the full motion capture kiss. But the thing about Garrus, of course, is he's only one of 2 characters who've been with Shepard's squad mates the whole time. The other being Tali, which...
I'll let Pat talk about Tali for a little bit, because she's actually my favorite 2 characters in the game are the Elusive Man and Tali. So we're going to talk about Tali, but we're going to about 5 minutes because we do want to make sure there's time for questions from the panel. So, okay.
Tali Zora Naraya.
Vast Normandy!
And then Vast Normandy. You know, we weren't sure we were going to be able to do that. It was actually one of those spur-of-the-moment things where we said, could we actually change her title card? Can we do that? And I think the gameplay guy said, well, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but, oh, you want to change it to Vast Normandy? Well, yeah, we'll do that. Sometimes asking for the impossible, you just have to explain why it's going to be cool, and then the impossible gets a little easier. Tali and Garrus were were the first people I got the "They Were With You All the Time" achievement for in Mass 1. And so they were my faves. Not that we have faves, we're completely impartial and professional on all of our characters, even my waifu. So in Mass Effect 2, I got to take her on a journey and share a little bit more about Quarian culture. In Mass Effect 3, Tali is, if she's alive and you're not a monster who got her killed, the lens through which you see Quarian culture. And it's one of the reasons I really love Tali, because she's flawed. I think a lot of people think, I've seen people say, oh, she's just perfect, and she's not. And, you know, I wrote her, so I'm saying that. She's racist. She grew up in a very racist society that has had several centuries to tell its version of what happened with the Geth. And that doesn't mean she's a bad person. It just means that's where she grew up. That's the life experience she had, was sitting around the holographic campfire telling ghost stories about the Morning War. She has an unrealistic willingness to sacrifice herself for the fleet by human standards. She has a father that even in death she's trying to prove herself to. And that's what Quarian culture is. So for telling the story of the Geth and the Quarians, we really wanted to establish that. We needed to establish, just on a sheer logistical level, if you were new to Mass Effect 3, trying to give you any kind of reason why, between the Geth and the Quarians, you would side with the ones you'd been fighting for the past several hours. Because we knew you were going to fight the Geth. They're fun enemies to fight. They make the blinky sounds. They shoot fast. They have a lot of shields. So they're fun to fight. I like them. But, you know, if we're going to let you fight them for 2 hours and then say, or you can side with us, how does that work? And so the way we decided to do that, and the way we had to do it, was to show that the Quarians were flawed as well. And that they were too passionate, too emotional, that they are a deeply spiritual people who care about their homeworld, but are also willing to do sometimes atrocious things. Who punched Admiral Garrow? You made the right call. Yeah. So coming down to that Tali's story, even Tali's romance really is the romance. You know, she doesn't have a big date on the Citadel. Your date is getting her homeworld. That was kind of the way we thought about it. That last conversation, sitting on the cliffs, looking at it, everything. You know, that was for Tali, that was coming full circle, and that was really the experience I wanted to get across.
So there we go. We are starting to run out of time. We've been talking too much. So we do want to open up the floor to some questions. We've kind of run out of time. If you have a question, we've only got about 10 minutes or so, unfortunately. If we do not get to your question, please come to room 105. Talk to us. We do want to talk to you.